Joining us now, House Foreign Affairs and Homeland Security member. He is Congressman August Pfluger. Congressman, it's great to have you on. Okay, the Secretary of State, Antony Blinken, will kick off 2 days of testimony before Congress starting on Monday, first before your committee, House Foreign Affairs. We're living in history right now. This is the biggest abandonment by any U.S. government of Americans behind enemy lines. What do you want to ask the Secretary of State on Monday?
Well, you're right. It's just such a tragedy as we approach the 20th anniversary of 9/11 for all of those who sacrificed, many of whom I know that gave the ultimate sacrifice. And now we have a Secretary of State and a president who seem okay with the rising levels of terrorism, with the complete botched withdrawal, leaving Americans and other Afghans who helped us for 20 years behind. And so the first question is going to be, how are you, Mr. Secretary, going to triage this situation and get the remaining Americans home, get the SIVs home? You know, we're still in contact with many people in Afghanistan, Afghans who are trying to get out, pilots that are in Uzbekistan and their families. They're hiding from the Taliban right now. And we know that there's a major terrorist who has been appointed as a cabinet member inside the Taliban government. This is unacceptable. We don't partner with terrorists. And the Haqqani network is dangerous. They're real. And I want to know from Secretary Blinken what he intends to do about it. We do not want to recognize that government as a legitimate government because they do practice terrorism.
Congressman, they will be bringing talking points and a lot of rhetoric. They're very adept at talking around the question. Will you be able to drill past that and nail it down and ask them, Antony, the Secretary of State, specifically what were the exit plans and why did you abandon President Trump's deal with the Taliban, saying you've got to cut off al-Qaeda, you've got to do much more before we will deal with you? Will you be able to nail Secretary of State Blinken down on all of that?
Well, it's doubtful that they're going to answer in a truthful way. And I think that the after action and the accountability it's paramount that we get to that. But right now, there are still people trapped behind enemy lines, and we want to put them on the record to understand what he's going to do about those folks and how he's going to get them out. You know, I spent the day yesterday and today in New York City at Ground Zero at the World Trade Center. We met with New York City police and fire, detectives, folks in charge of counterterrorism. They are very worried about the amount of threats. This is a direct result from the debacle that the Biden administration has caused. They have increased our vulnerabilities, and one of which is al-Qaeda, like you mentioned. And what is the Secretary of State going to do about that? What is President Biden going to do about that? I doubt they'll answer that with any sort of sincerity or with any sort of good plan.
The point is they work for the U.S. taxpayer. The U.S. taxpayer doesn't work for them. They're in a position of power. It's not about holding on to their own power. It's about how are you using your power in service to the U.S. taxpayer who you pledged and promised to defend and protect, and you swore an oath to that. Now you've got 41 Republicans sending a letter to the president saying, we've got grave concerns. You're rushing and doing incomplete vetting of thousands of Afghans coming here. Listen, we're an open arms nation, but they're worried because they have military bases in their districts, and you have Republican Representative Mark Green saying he's hearing they're taking ride-hailing apps and leaving U.S. bases without any vetting.
Well, it just goes in line with every aspect of this administration, which is they are opening us up as Americans, as taxpayers, to every possible threat out there, whether it's economic threat, the border crisis that we see now, the Afghanistan debacle. And you're right to say that we need answers. And Mark Green is right. And other Republicans are calling on this.
And accountability for botching this withdrawal. So what's the accountability?
Well, I think right now we need to understand what the process is to make sure that we don't have people that slip through the cracks, that they don't take ride-sharing apps. You know, we actually asked, as a member of Homeland Security, I asked to go over and physically verify and have oversight, congressional oversight on that process, and they denied it. The Democrats flat out denied it under the guise of it's too hard for us to do right now. We need that oversight at the lily pad bases around the world. We need it at the bases here in the United States. It has to happen, and they're flat out denying it.
Well, Congressman, we'll be watching. We're going to see how you question Secretary of State We're going to report on the Secretary of State testifying for Congress on both Monday and Tuesday to see how he performs in Congress and whether he's honest and transparent and truthful and stops with talking points. Congressman August Pfluger, thank you so much for joining us.